Okay. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Did you hear a lady say this conference is now being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So, so I just need you to say your name and when you grew up in Hammond.
John Chase. I grew up there. I was born in 1959, and I stayed there until I was 19. I left around 1979, 1980.
Okay. So tell me the street you grew up on and the people who are in your house, like your mother, father, and then your brothers and sisters.
Oh, okay. I grew up at 1123 Moss Street. That's in Hammond, Indiana. I had 11 brothers and sisters, 5 sisters, 6 brothers, my mother, my father. Do you need all the names of everybody or just...
If you can remember 11, yeah.
My oldest brother was William Chase. Then it was David. Then I had a set of twins, Lawrence and Elaine. And then I had McKinley, which is Mac, we call him. Had Barbara. Then myself. Then Derek. Then there was another set of twins, Arnell and Vernell. Then there was my sister Terry, and then it was my sister Benny, and that's the 12 of us. And my mother was Lou Costa Chase, and my father was John Chase Jr.
Okay. So let's start out. Tell me a little bit about Lou Costa and John, and what kinds of things. Did they meet in Hammond? Did they grow up in Hammond? How did they get to Hammond?
My mom was from Alabama. My dad was from Louisiana, and they met some kind of way. I'm not sure if it was I think it was in Alabama. My dad was passing through. They met, and he ended up moving to Indiana, from what my mom was telling me how the story went. And he sent his friends back to get her, to bring her back to Hammond with him, and that's how we grew up and started a family. They started a family there in Hammond, Indiana. And they stayed there until my mom passed away, and then my dad a few years after her.
Okay. So tell me a little bit when you guys were growing up. I just want to know the environment of you guys growing up on Moss Street with that many brothers and sisters, and what your dad did as a job, and just the environment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my mom, she was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, while my dad, he worked at American Steel, which is a steel mill in Hammond. We had a pretty nice childhood growing up. We weren't rich. We were pretty poor, but at the same time, we had a lot of love from our parents. My dad used to take us fishing, taking us hunting, sign us up for Little League, that kind of stuff, And my mom pretty much had the girls inside the house doing all the housework, as far as the cooking and the cleaning, and my dad had us on the outside of the house doing cutting the lawn, repairing the stairs if we needed to on the house and things like that. So we kind of had a pretty balanced childhood growing up.
Okay. And what kind of, in terms of American Steel, I mean, was he like the 9 to 5? Did he do double shifts? And I mean, he had a lot of kids, so how was the struggle with him at American Steel?
It was a struggle having that many kids, because after he passed away, going through some of his things, we saw his check for like $200. We're thinking, man, how did they make it on $200? I think it was like every 2 weeks or something. So it was kind of a struggle. There was times when food was kind of scarce, but we managed. We did okay.
Okay. And so, at what point did he ever tell you guys that, hey, look, things are tight, everybody's going to have to pull their own weight? Did he say, what kinds of things did he say to you guys that gave you guys the inspiration to keep moving?
Well, I mean, even though things were tight, we realized that later on in life, but I mean, at the time, we didn't know. I mean, they would still give us an allowance, they would buy clothes for us, I mean, sometimes we have to go to like the Goodwill to shop maybe or whatever, but, we pretty much still had stuff, had things, had toys. His company was a pretty good company. He would have a Christmas party every year, and they would give us like a turkey, and they would give us a toy for each one of the children, and the same thing for Thanksgiving, so we pretty much always had a bird on the table for the holidays. Plus we got gifts for Christmas from the company.
Okay. Okay, cool. And tell me about the home life with all the kids and negotiating that many kids in the house and in the bedroom situation and in the dinner situation. What was it like?
Well, now, Let me explain. First of it wasn't all 12 at the same time that in the house. Like my older brother, he got drafted into the Vietnam War, so he ended up leaving out of the house. My second older brother, David, he ended up getting a job working in Inland Steel, which is in East Chicago, Indiana, so he moved out. You know, my brother Lawrence, he ended up going to college in Nebraska, so he moved out. So it wasn't like 12 in the house all at the same time. You know, as some were being born, some were moving out. You know. So, but I mean, it was a nice childhood, and you know, in Indiana, wintertime gets really brutally cold, so a lot of times they have to stay indoors. But with that many brothers and sisters, you can make up games to play inside the house. So we always had like a lot of fun in the house, you know. And then in the summertime, when we could get outside, you know, we can go play sports together, you know. Then we all had friends, so we had like a big group of friends. I had 2 or 3 friends, and my other brothers and sisters had 2 or 3 friends. It was like 20, 30 people around all the time, so we could play a baseball game in the park, or you know, football or basketball or whatever, you know, so that was kind of cool.
Okay. So now let's move a little bit outside the house and just Moss Street. Tell me a little bit about Moss Street, maybe some of your neighbors, and how was it growing up on that particular street?
Moss Street was a pretty good street to grow up on. You know, we were pretty much friends with everybody in the neighborhood. Cause like I said, we had a big family, so I might have been friends with some of the Kevin Love and Juan Toyle Love and Cynthia Love, you know, and then my brother might have been friends with, one of my brothers might have been friends with the Wilberts, which is Larry, Gregory, Booger, you know, all these different people in their household. So we had a lot of different friends, so we pretty much knew everybody on the whole block, because at some point in time, almost everybody on the whole block ended up coming to our house to visit us at one point or another.
Okay. If you can imagine, if you could, sitting on your porch, and if you can describe the houses, like 3 or 4 houses to your right and 3 or 4 houses to your left, and then across the street, who lived in those houses, if you can remember that kind of thing.
Right next door, the Galloways lived on our left, and then right our immediate right was the Roper family. And then next door to them were the Webbs, and then next door to them was the Jarretts, and then the next door to them were the Flowers. And then going back the other way, there was Mrs. Green. She was pretty much lived on her own. And then there was next door to her were the Tarvers, you know, Ricky Tarver, Eddie, and all of them. They grew up there. And so far down at the end of the corner, there was a liquor store owned by a white family, Nick's Liquor. You know, so, and then across the street from them, there was the Chavis, Mark Chavis, and his sisters and mother, and they lived there. And going back the other way, there was the Loves, there was the Wilburts, there was the Williams, there was your cousins Chucky and they live right across the street from us. You know, so that's pretty much the block until you get down to the 1000 block and the, you know.
Okay. And once you got down the street, do you know of any? I think the Mitchells were right on the corner, right?
The Mitchells, yeah. Brian Mitchell. I went to school with them. They were right on the corner. He had his sister Phyllis and Janice, and they lived right on the corner. And then you go down even further, Glenn Short. I went to school with him and his family, the Short family. Gerald Winters. They lived down on the other end. This is down in the 1000 block, because we lived in 1100 blocks. We went to the next block, it was the 1000 block. So Gerald Winters was there. You know, see on the right, her family was there. Who else I can think of off the top? Green, Ham Green, and Freddie Green. They lived down in the 1000 block as well. You know, they were all friends of us and, you know, my brothers and sisters and stuff. So.
Okay. And so that block, would you describe? So you grew up. Say when you were 10. So you were born in. So you grew up in like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, I was born in 1959.
Oh, 59. So the 60s, say, 1969, you were like 10. And that was a time where it was almost like, I think Hammond was, to me, it was almost like Mayberry RFD, where you could leave your doors open, and, it wasn't like a criminal kind of environment. It was family environment, everybody for themselves, and everybody helped everybody kind of thing. So what was it like for you growing up as 10? Like what would you be into? What would you be getting into as a kid?
At 10, I was playing Little League. So when it wasn't baseball season, we were playing baseball in the park, or, we were playing basketball, or we're playing games like tag and hide and go seek and you're it and things like that, So pretty nice childhood. Like I said, we had a lot of friends, so we had a lot of people to play with.
Okay. Did you do the organized baseball?
Little League.
Oh, okay, Little League. And so where did you
Yeah.
play? Was it on the Columbia?
Yeah, on Columbia. Yeah, it had the Maywood Little League Park right over there in Columbia, so pretty much everybody in the neighborhood played there. They had about 9 or 10 teams, and, all the kids played on different teams, and it was nice growing up playing baseball.
Okay. Do you know do you remember your coach?
Mr. Laurent was I played for the Saints, and Mr. Laurent was my coach, him and his son, and those guys, I mean, his sons, they were probably like 18 or so, or 17, 18 back at the time, and so for them to take time out of their schedule, because they could have been doing other things like chasing girls or party, and it would come to our and practice and coach us in Little League baseball. So that was kind of commendable of them. Mr. Laurent, he was older, he was around my dad's age, but he was one of the coaches.
Okay, okay. Do you remember any of the top teams at the time?
Well, my team, but Saints, we were always pretty good. The Demons were pretty good. The Elves, I mean, they all had some pretty good teams. We were all kind of evenly matched. Some better than others, but for the most part, it was pretty competitive.
Right, right. I was on the Demons.
Yeah, I know.
Remember all that? Okay.
Yeah.
And Rocky, wasn't Rocky's dad? Was his dad Frank? What was Rocky's dad? You remember Rocky?
Yeah, I remember Rocky. I can't remember his dad's name. But I hung out with the Mitchells and Brian, which were their cousins. I hung out with Brian, but I never really got Rocky's and fathers and parents' names and stuff.
Oh, okay, okay. I think his father was a coach at one point too, and it's interesting too. You say when hanging out with the Mitchells, because I would go over to Chucky's house and hang out with him, and then sometimes we would go over to the Mitchells and hang out with Phyllis, and and then I think Wanda Lagarde may have been their cousin too.
Yeah, Wanda and Pasquale.
And Pasquale, right? And
yeah.
Yes, and we kind of all hang out in the basement, and so growing up a little bit more, say in your teens and stuff. Describe, say when you were going to, you went to Hammond High, right?
Hammond Tech. Hey, can I go back for a minute when I was like younger for a minute?
Oh yeah,
there were some unfavorable times when I remember we were going to Wallace School. I think I was in the 4th or 5th grade, and there were like KKK leaflets being thrown in our neighborhood and stuff. That was kind of a scary time for us growing up.
Now, what would these KKK leafs say? What did it mean?
I can't remember, but I remember picking one up, and it said Ku Klux Klan on it, and that kind of freaked everybody because we knew about the KKK and how they were a terrorist group here in America towards, non-European people. So that was kind of a scary time, but we got past nothing ever happened that I can recall as far as to anybody in our neighborhood. But I just remember those leaflets being passed out, being thrown out into the neighborhood, and the wind was blowing them on the sidewalks and stuff, and we pick it up and read it. Oh, KKK, kind of freak us out.
No, well, so keeping that in mind, were there any adverse things in terms of sometimes when you're a kid, you might not know the racial injustices because you're a kid, and and we didn't have that much money, so we didn't know we were poor or whatever, because you can, as long as there's something on the table and you can go and play. Your parents probably knew, and my parents knew, but we didn't know. So in terms of any racial injustices and racism and all that, did you see any, or did you witness anything?
Yeah, as kids, we would see how the cops would come in our neighborhood and harass us for no reason. I mean, they would come in and beat people and stuff. But as I got older, our neighborhood got a little rougher, so the cops became scared to come into our neighborhoods growing up. So it kind of tides were kind of reversed. When I was younger, 9, 10, I was coming in the neighborhood and harassing people. But then as a teenager in high school, I remember, the guy running, one of the guys running for mayor in our neighborhood in Hammond, he did a speech to our senior class, and he was saying some things like, it's a shame that our police officers are afraid to patrol certain areas of the city. And we knew exactly what we were talking about, because things something could jump off in our neighborhood, and the cops wouldn't show up till 30, 40 minutes after you call them, after the dust had settled. So.
Okay. And what made it kind of scandalous? Is just because it became, quote unquote, ghetto? And to us, it wasn't really a ghetto. It was just a place to live. But
well, I think the answer to that question was the Red Tams gang and the Blackstone Rangers gang. Once they moved into the area, then it got to be a pretty rough spot, and the cops were like afraid to come in there. I remember on Conkey Street, the Brooks House had a hotel next across the street from it. They basically ran everybody out of the hotel, and they painted half of the door red to represent the Red Tams, and then half the door black to represent the Blackstone Rangers. They pretty much had their headquarters in that hotel.
Okay. And what?
I remember.
So, was the Blackstone Rangers? Wasn't that a Chicago group or East Chicago?
Yeah, I think they're out of Chicago, and they kind of came over into Indiana because we're right on the state line of Illinois, Indiana. If you cross the state line, if you're in Hammond on the state line, you step across the street, you're in Illinois. So we're like probably 5 or 10 minutes from the south side of Chicago if you were on the state line. So we were really close to Chicago, and so they decided to come in there. And I guess maybe the gang task force in Hammond wasn't that great, because we really didn't have gangs there until the Red Tams and Blackstone Rangers. So they came in and pretty much took over. I remember them having a parade down through the city, through Hammond and stuff, and I don't even remember seeing any cops. I remember a long line of cars, maybe about, 40, 50 cars, and people walking. They were driving through, and they were doing like hand signs and stuff, and I remember not seeing any cops around.
How old were you at the time?
I was probably around 15, maybe 14, 15.
Okay. And so the Brooks House was off of Conkey Street.
Yeah, right on Conkey Street.
Right. So do you remember Conkey Street, and do you remember where the taverns and any situations?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad used to be a really good pool player, and so he would sometimes take us to the pool hall on Conkey Street. One of his friends, Mr. Benny, he owned a restaurant pool hall there. So I would go there, and my dad would have us sit on the stool and while he was shooting pool and stuff. So yeah, we got to see some of the nightlife as kids, growing up.
Okay. And what other kinds of things happened on Conkey Street? See if you can describe Conkey Street, that part of Conkey Street.
I can describe it for you real good. They called Conkey the Little Vietnam, because there was always something going on, some violence, some fighting, some shootings, and it was just all kinds of things going on. Matter of fact, I remember as a kid growing up, I used to always hear that if you could stay on Conkey Street past 12 midnight, you're considered a man, no matter how old you were, because that's how rough and tough it was. So if you could hang out, they had a lot of pool halls and bars and taverns and little restaurants, mom and pop restaurants and stuff, so people would always come there to hang out, shoot pool, to drink beer, whatever, and it was always, anytime you mix alcohol and stuff like that with people, it's going to be some tempers flaring and some fighting and stuff going on. So I remember seeing some of that stuff growing up as a kid.
It's so ironic that we actually lived on Conkey Street, but we lived on the other side of Conkey Street, right next to Androff.
Right.
And,
if you're on the 1100 block side, that's where all the taverns stuff was pretty scandalous.
Oh yeah, exactly. And we were a little bit further down, but I remember all kinds of stuff. And then I can remember, like Jesse's had a barber shop right on the corner there, right next to the laundromat. Right. And around the corner was a little candy store.
And the Collins had a little candy store and stuff. Little kind of like a little small grocery store. You can go in there and get a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk and some candy, baked potato chips, whatever.
Right. In fact, I think that little store is almost the size of 2 or 3 outhouses. I mean, it's really small.
Yeah, it was pretty small. They had a lot.
I think it's still there. Right. And as you got a little further down, you know what? I remember one time this white guy drove down the street and he stopped right in front of the laundromat, and some brother jumped on his hood, and he took the white guy took a tire iron and jumped out of his car, and the brother just took the tire iron from him and beat him down. and the guy ended up in front of our house, and my mom ended up going in there and getting a wet towel and helping this white guy because blood was everywhere. And but that was like towards the end of Conkey Street, where it wasn't that much happening, but it was enough still Conkey Street for something to happen. So it was lively in more ways than one. But I understand that there's a lot of gambling and this, that, and the other. Do you remember any, crap games and this, that, and the other on Conkey?
Not because when I was a kid hanging out there, with my dad, no. But as a teenager hanging out on Conkey Street, because you had to, from where we lived to get to the park to go play basketball, you had to cross Conkey Street. So you would see guys out there shooting crap on the sidewalk and stuff, that kind of thing. But as a kid growing up, young 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old going up there to watch my dad shoot pool, no. But as a teenager on my way to the park to play basketball or somewhere in that area, yeah, you'd always see the and not only on Conkey Street, in Maywood Park, you see people throwing the dice up against the wall, shooting crap.
Oh yeah. And so you describe Maywood Park, and what happens. I mean, it's cut between. I think it was a Tapper in the middle.
Yeah, it was a Howard Tapper. It was Columbia's on one end, and then if you go all the way down, the next street from Columbia was Tapper, then Howard, and then what was it? I can't think of the other street now. But then it went all the way where the police station. Then it was Calumet. So in between Calumet and Columbia was Maywood Park. And to show you how scandalous it used to be, I remember seeing a guy get beat down right in the park by the police station, and I didn't see one cop come out to help him, because back then, like I said, the cops was kind of scared. The Adobe family, they, I think from what I heard, this guy broke into one of their sister's house, and they caught him in the park, and they literally beat the shit out of him. I mean, he had shit come out of his ass. They were kicking him in the ass, and they were beating him, hitting him in the stomach and face. I mean, they just mutilated the guy, and I was like, there's the cops there. Not one cop came out to help, because at that point in Hammond's history, cops were kind of scared to go in the black neighborhood, even though this was right in the park, right there where the police station was. The police station was probably about maybe 50 yards from where this was taking place, and not one cop came out to stop it or break it up or arrest anybody, because they were really scared. But Maywood Park was where we all went to play basketball. We played football there. On Sundays they had like softball leagues, and they would have teams. They would come out and play, and all the people in the neighborhood would come out and watch. That was pretty much our entertainment in the neighborhood, Or they had like Brooks House. They would have like basketball leagues, and it was outdoor basketball leagues. They would have teams. They would go out and play every weekend or whatever in these tournaments and stuff, these leagues and stuff, And that was kind of Maywood Park. Eventually they ended up building a swimming pool there, but before the swimming pool, we would play right in that area where they built the swimming pool. We would play softball games, and we play, football, tackle football and stuff, flag football, baseball. I mean, we and then they had like I said, the basketball court across the street from there, and then we would play basketball there and stuff, And that's pretty much how we honed our sporting skills in Maywood Park.
Do you remember when? Because where the pool is and all that, that was an area where it was like sunken down a little bit. It was almost like a bathtub, and they would fill it up with water during the winter.
Yeah, in the wintertime, we would ice skate.
Yeah, it was an ice skating rink in the winter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we had our ways of getting sports and entertainment. I mean, just get out there ice skating and stuff, man, in the wintertime, and softball and baseball in the summertime,
Right. So with your, let's move on to high school. What were your recollections so you went to Hammond Tech?
Yeah, I went to Hammond Tech.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about Hammond.
All my brothers before me and sisters before me went to Hammond, Texas. There's no way they're gonna let me go to Hammond High. So
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It was
tell
like
me a
a
little
state
bit about
tradition.
Hammond Tech.
Hammond Tech was a technical school. You can go in there. They had like wood shop. They had steel shop. You can go in there like and melt steel and make little things like we make little trophies and stuff like that. And it was basically hone you for a skill working with your hands. And they had a wood shop. Like I said, they had a metal shop. They had sheet metal shop. So you can go in there and do that in addition to the math and the history and everything else. And they had sporting teams, basketball, football, baseball, tennis, all that kind of stuff as well.
Do you think Hammond Tech was kind of priming you for like the steel industry, because in the area there's Inland Steel, U.S., American, Bethlehem. I mean, all these steel industries was in the immediate area.
Well, yeah, they had that part of the curriculum, but also, like I said, they had wood shops. You learn how to we'd make bird houses and, different things in wood shop. And then we had a sheet metal shop where we make like little tin cups and cans and stuff like this. So they would kind of prime you for a job or a career working with your hands, pretty much.
Okay. So as far as your recollection, too, who were some of the movers and shakers who came out of there? Some people who were like maybe social activists or people who were influential in the neighborhood. Who
First come to
had
mind
the
is like Bruce Green. Bruce Green was like one of the heads of the Red Tams. He was also into trying to uplift the people there. Like a lot of times when there was construction stuff going on, they'd have all these whites coming in doing all the construction work, and he was like, no, this is our neighborhood. You need to hire some black people. So Bruce Green, Benny Stanley, he was one of them as well. Sometimes they would even shut down the white company, say, no, until you hire some black people to work on these jobs, you're not going to work at all either. So there was confrontations with these companies coming in and into our neighborhood. So they were kind of social activists in that respect.
Okay. And do you know any other, say, political figures who maybe city councilmen and any of those people? Or did we have any?
I can't even recall back then. I think Carlotta King would always. I don't know if she would always try to run for some office, or she would always have. But I remember seeing a lot of signs in her yard, in her front yard, for different political things. But I can't remember if she was actually running for any kind of councilman office or anything like that as well. I don't remember that far back. Far as that, because back then, we weren't really political. We were like, get out in the park, play ball, and have some fun, and we weren't really into the politics part. That was pretty much left to our parents to do all that stuff, the politic and stuff.
Okay.
At 16, 17, 18, we weren't allowed to vote anyway, so that wasn't an interest to us.
Right. Okay. Now, what about just people who influence that neighborhood? Because it seemed like East Hamlin, the parameters were East Hamlin was what, 165th, Columbia on one side, Calumet on the other side, and maybe went as far as maybe Highland or something.
Highland, and eventually more and more blacks moved into like all the way back up to May Street and stuff like that, Bauer, back in there, but back then there was a lot of white families in like Bauer and Becker and those streets, kind of where my brother's house is on May Street. There was kind of quite a few whites in that area, but the blacks are, like you said, pretty much around Highland Street, and then after that it started getting kind of white, but then eventually the blacks started moving out in that area as well. So now it's pretty much from, I don't know how far back it goes now, from May Street all the way back to, like it passed 165th over to where Gabbett is now and stuff,
Oh yeah, yeah. And then, I think at that time, Wallace Road was black too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was on the other side of Columbia.
Right. Okay, so I was going to ask you to describe some of your fondest memories of Hammond. What just brings a smile to your face when you think of Hammond?
I think just I'd have to say Little League. I had a great time with Little League. That would always brought up good memories and stuff, and just hanging out with your friends. I mean, we were everybody was pretty much close knit. Right now, it's like our lives are structured where, because as teenagers, we didn't really have to work because our parents all worked and took care of everything, so we could be out socializing with our friends and hanging out. I miss that aspect of it because I think we kind of miss the essence of life because we're constantly on the go now. We got to go to work, got to go pick up the kids, got to go, shopping, got to go, got to do all this stuff. So we don't have time to really enjoy life anymore. So some of my fondest memories, man, was just being able to just get out in the park and play basketball with my friends, or go partying at the basement parties, and the little sometimes people would rent out like the Carpenter's Hall and they would throw parties and get to go there, and you see all your friends, get to dance and socialize and have fun, So those are like the best memories pretty much. And I left at 19, so before that I was just being able to go to the park in the summertime. We're out of school and get to play ball and hang out with all your friends and joke and talk trash and slap box and practice boxing and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right. And seeing that you left at 19, if you think back, there's 19 years of being in Hammond. What were the worst memories that Hammond brought up?
Well, the worst memories probably just a lot of the killings and the shootings and stuff, man. I mean, like Donnie Haskins got killed. Right across the street from us, one of Williams, Willie Williams, he got killed. So just that kind of thing. You don't ever want to, see or know somebody that got killed or got shot or whatever. But that was the reality in Hammond. So those are some of the bad memories.
Okay, and who were the most influential people, or I don't want to say stars, because there are certain people like a Roland Parrish who went on to have a bunch of McDonald's and this, that, and the other. Like, who, in your estimation, who were the people who stood out who came from Hammond?
You always think about David Hildreth. He was always into painting and art and stuff like that. Something that wasn't like a staple of ours in the community. He was in doing photography. Paul Walker was a police officer. He was respected by a lot of people. He was also into photography, which is something I was in. So seeing him with his cameras out shooting stuff, that was kind of inspiring. My 8th grade track coach, Mr. Brown, he was a black guy, came and they hired him over to Edison Middle School where I was going to school at, and we'd never seen a black coach before, and he's like really instrumental. Anytime we felt that we couldn't do something, he would always give us a pep talk, man. That would always like just really, and if I ever saw him again, I'd like to thank him. That I don't know where he is right now, but he was really influential, because just seeing somebody of my color in that position, and then being able to motivate us the way he would motivate us. I ran my first year running the hurdles. I think I almost went undefeated. I lost my first race, and after that, I never lost a race. And then because of him, how he coached me and how he always, hey, your event's coming up. Like I would get beat in one of my other events. He'd say, I'd be all down and out. He'd say, hey, don't worry about it. Your event coming up. The hurdles coming up. Your event coming up. You'll get them. And then the hurdles will come up, and I would end up winning. So he was always motivating me that way. So I'd say him. And then of course my parents, seeing, they stayed together. Back then, it wasn't a whole lot of divorce going like it is now. So just seeing them and the way they treated and loved us, that was motivating. Looking up to my older brothers and stuff, watching them do what they did, that was, motivating as well.
Okay. Okay, cool. And so why did you leave Hammond to go to Houston?
Well, I was working in a steel mill at the time. I think you had to be like 18. And I graduated high school when I was 17. So all my friends worked in the steel mill. I had to go work these little odd jobs. I think I worked at Rand McNally. They were making books, and we used to have to stack the pages up and stuff, and just, until I could turn 18. All my friends making, that was, back then, it was like $10 an hour. That was like really good money. And so I was only making like 5 or 6 because I wasn't old enough because I was only 17 when I graduated. So I started working at the steel mill, Blow Knox. We're in Chicago, Indiana. And they would lay me off every few months. I would go work for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and they would lay me off. I was like, And I'd come back and I'd work 3 or 4 months again. They would lay me off again. My brother Larry, my third oldest brother, he moved to Houston. And he would call us in the dead of winter time. Yeah, man, what's going on there? Man, it's really cold. It's about 30 below zero, so we just in the house chilling. What y'all doing out in Texas? Yeah, well, me and my son Tony, we out by the swimming pool. Oh, man, you have an indoor pool? No, we outside. Outside, man, what's the temperature there? Oh, man, it's about 78, 79. I'm like, in the wintertime? And so he convinced me to come out here and kind of, come out and visit, check it out. I came out and I was like, oh, man, this is great. But even then, my job would call me and I would go back to Hammond and work. Next thing, 3 or 4 months, they would lay me off again, And then my mom would call. So this went on for a while, and after a while, my mom called and said, hey, your job called you, come back to work. I said, Mom, I'm going to stay here so I can make it happen here because I'm going to go back there. It's going to work me for, 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 months, and they're going to lay me off. I'm going to see if I can make it work here. And that was back in 79, 80. I moved out here, and I've been out here ever since.
Okay. And so what do you do out there now?
Well, I'm a flight attendant, so I've pretty much traveled the world doing what I do. I do photography, doing some music stuff right now, but my career basically has been, for the last 30 years, I've been a flight attendant.
Okay.
For Continental Airlines, merged with United, so now we're United with the United name, so I'm United now, but been doing this about 30 years.
Okay. And what are your big projects that are happening right now that are creating some stir within your hobbies or your pastime?
Well, doing the music, doing the spoken word stuff about ancient African history, that's getting a lot of buzz. The radio station here has been really showing me a lot of love. They've been, playing my stuff a lot, and I've been getting a lot of feedback from people about, what I'm doing, and it's going bigger than what I ever thought. That little piece that you asked me to write for your website turned into what I'm doing now.
Okay. What's the name of 2 or 3 of the songs that you do on that have exhibited on that radio station? First of all, what's the name of the radio station in Houston that's playing your stuff?
90.9 KTSU.
KTSU
yeah, it's a college radio station here with TSU, historically black college.
Okay. And what are some of the songs, and how did they originate? What did they come from?
Well, my good friend Bobby Martis, we grew up together a little bit before he moved to California, asked me to write something for a website he's putting together. So I was in Africa. My girlfriend went back home to hang out with her family. I was sitting around the hotel with nothing to do. And I said, let me grab my laptop and start on the stuff so I can have it done by the time I get back to the States. So I sat down and started typing If Your Ancestors Could Speak. And then as I started typing, things just started flowing. Before I know it, I had a whole thing done. And I got back to back to Houston. I started kind of tweaking and adding some stuff here, taking some stuff out, and then I sent it out to you, to Bobby Martis, and then he put it up on his website, and I would let people read it here periodically, and people would say, well, you need to do more. People need to get this out. People need to do something else with it. What else are you going to do with it? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm a photographer. I just do photography. And people said, man, you got to get this out. People got to hear this, And so I came across a guy who said he could do some music for me. So we put it together, If Your Ancestors Could Speak, and put it out there. And I put it to the radio station and stuff. They started playing it for me, and they get a lot of positive feedback from it. So we released the EP, which had 2 songs, which was If Your Ancestors Could Speak, and then the other one was It's Time to Wake Up. We had an extended version of both of those, and we had the radio version of both of those, and we had the intro. We put that out, and I got such positive feedback from it that I decided to do a full CD. So that's what I've been working on now. I just released a song on iTunes called African Fathers. And before that, I released one called Get Your Mind Right and Cinematic Hijack.
Okay. And how has some of your people in Hammond reacted based on some of your songs?
Oh, it's been kind of crazy. A couple of friends like Ricky Dirt, he calls me periodically and talks to me about it. He listened to it and stuff, and he was like, man, this is on point. This is what we need to hear. All this crazy stuff they got going on now. This is exactly what needs to be put out, and it's great. I can see big things coming from it, And some other friends, like my friend Levi Williams, he heard it, he liked it, thought it was like something really inspirational and stuff like that. So I don't know if a lot of people in Hammond know Africa Spirit Love, because that's my stage name I'm using on this music thing. So they know me as JC or John Chase, so they might not even know who. They might be listening to it, and I wonder who this guy is, because my picture's not on the CD cover. It's some Egyptian, hieroglyphic stuff, pyramids and gods and stuff like that. So a lot of people might even know who. They won't be able to distinguish the two, that they're one and the same.
Okay. And so did growing up in Hammond kind of help or hinder or inspire or not inspire this this Afrocentric kind of mission that you're on now?
Well, I think pretty much all that didn't start in Hammond. It started when I took my first trip to Africa. I went to Ethiopia back in 2000. And just seeing the stuff I saw over there and just started reading books and watching videos and stuff, it just kind of inspired me to go. And I dated a young lady, Lily Michael, She was from Eritrea. She grew up in Ethiopia as a little girl. And so when we were dating, she would always tell me stories about Ethiopia. So I was kind of intrigued about going, but was kind of apprehensive because of all the stuff I saw on TV. So when a friend of mine, one of my coworkers, asked me to go over there with him, I was like, oh, no. Those people starving, flies all over, big belly kids, ain't no food. And so for me believing what I saw on TV, I turned him down. And so he went over by himself, shot some video and pictures, brought it back and showed me, and just blew me away. So I started going back there with him, and then seeing the stuff that I was seeing, the historical stuff, like the churches that they carve out of the mountains and the obelisks that are thousands of years old that are erected weighing 550 tons, how they were able to erect them, just got me intrigued and got me to studying about the Ethiopian culture and the history and stuff, and that parlayed into what I'm doing now, which is doing the music stuff. Because I figure not everybody's going to pick up a book like me. I got many books I've been reading about African history, ancient history, and stuff like that. A lot of people are more inclined to listen to music than they are to pick up a book and read. So I figure if I can take what I've learned and put it in music form, the melody or the beat of the music will catch them, and then there will be a message in that music. And so that might inspire and intrigue somebody else to want to study and learn more about our history, because when you look at here in America, we're the only culture that really don't know anything about our history. The Italians, they still have their Italian culture and their history. The Latinos, they still have their culture and their history. The Irish, everybody, they still have their culture and their history. If they go back to their country and their homeland, they can still function. They still have their language. They still speak Italian. They still speak, French and all these other different German. They can go back to their homeland. They can still function. But when you tell African Americans to go back to their homeland and function, we have no concept or no clue of who we are, where we're from, what language we spoke, or anything. So hopefully what I'm doing will inspire people to want to go out and study and do more. Now they have the Ancestry.com where you can go and take DNA tests and tell you what part of Africa you're from, whatever, So there's ways now to figure out where you from, where you came from,
Okay. So lastly, what are your say aspirations for the city of Hammond now, where it came from, which is this kind of Mayberry RFD, but the black part of Hammond, I guess they call it East Hammond, so to where it is now. And so when you look at the transition from where it was to where it is now, and seeing that you live further away in Houston, what are your aspirations for wanting and looking at Hammond and where you see it going, or where you would like to see it going?
My aspirations would be that they could create more jobs in that area, so that community, that area could be uplifted like it used to be. Back when I was a kid growing up, there was a lot of steel mills there. So that's what their livelihood was. So you could raise a family, you could own a home, you could have a car, you have food on the table, working in the steel mill. But when they shut all that stuff down and shipped it overseas, wherever they did with it, it became a depressed area. So I wish they can come up out of that depression by having more jobs created there, because there are good people in Hammond. Even when I go back home, I still see people, a lot of them I don't remember, but they'll remember me. Hey, JC, how's it going? I'll speak to them and stuff, But there's a lot of times where I don't want to go out there by myself, not being one of my family members, because people who have moved in there who don't know me might want to try to take advantage of me. So, but it would be great if they could create jobs like they had back when I was a kid growing up, where people could have a livelihood, and clean up the drug use and all that kind of stuff in the Hammond, And the thing is, if you don't have any jobs there, a lot of people will say, well, okay, I need to sell drugs to make money. So a lot of people are going to do what they feel they have to do to survive. And I wish that being America, we always have this claim of being the greatest country in the world, if they would make the whole country, not only East Hammond, but the whole country, a better place to live by creating, jobs and opportunities for people to be able to, live the so-called American dream.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering those questions in the kind of like building an environment of Hammond from kind of your perspective. And at one point, I may ask you to maybe give me Larry's number or someone else's number in your family to get another perspective. It's probably the same, somewhat similar perspective, but Larry stayed there. He's on May Street, right?
No, David's on Main Street. Larry just moved away about 5 months ago. Him and his wife moved down to Florida. But you know what? They just had. He might be somebody you really need to call because they just had a Pillars in the Community thing, some kind of where they gave my dad or something a certificate for being a pillar in the community in Hammond. So that just happened like 3 weeks ago. I couldn't make it because I had to work. But Larry, him and his wife went. So that might be somebody you really need to talk to because he could probably give you a whole lot of insight on some stuff. He's a little older than me, too, so he can kind of tell you from his perspective.
Oh, that would be excellent. Okay, I'm going to sign off, but thank you for talking with me, but don't hang up. Hold on one second.
Okay. All right.